Hey, this is Chris for jamplay.com, and this is Skill of the Week, where we're getting a little bit better at one skill per week. Last week we did strumming. This week we're doing alternate picking. And you're in for a good workout, regardless of your skill level, regardless of where you're at. This picking exercise has been a picking exercise that I've used for years, and it is a fantastic exercise for many reasons. But one of the reasons is it really forces you to do alternate picking. Like, you can't really cheat with it. And it addresses a lot of different things about alternate picking that a lot of people find difficult. So, first I'm going to adjust this mic. Then, we're going to start first by talking about the mechanics of alternate picking. So, if you take a look at my pick hand, first of all, I'm using a harder, smaller pick. It doesn't mean you have to use a harder, smaller pick. It's called the Jazz 3. But I like to use these because I like a little bit of the pick out when I'm picking. I don't like, this is a pretty good pick, and people have really good luck with them. Something like this. These are great picks, but I feel like there's too much for me to grab. So I like the smaller ones for particularly if I'm doing a lot of picking. But what I want to do here, I want to make sure that the motion that I have in my pick, I'm going to pick the A string here. I want to make sure I'm not using too much motion. I don't want to be doing this. I want as little motion as I possibly can. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our pick on the string, and then we're going to pick down only enough to get to the other side of the string, like that. We're not even concerned about making noise. See what I'm doing? I'm just rolling back and forth. Obviously, you wouldn't really pick like that, but if you start to pick a little faster, make sure that I've got that taken care of here. When I start to pick a little faster using that mentality or using that idea, it keeps me from doing this as I get faster, which I don't want to do. I want to be tight in there. All right. The other thing that people talk about a lot is anchor or not anchor. I like to say whatever keeps you from being not tense, do that. Some people have a closed fist and can do amazing things. Some people have an open, I tend to do that most of the time. Sometimes I'll rest something on my pick guard, but I don't use it. I don't do that. I just kind of leave it sort of open feeling. The other thing is your angle of pick attack. You're not always going to be directly perpendicular to the string. Sometimes you might be at an angle, especially when you're down here on some of these higher strings. You're not going to be like this. You're going to be at an angle. And that's totally fine. In fact, a lot of times you're going to pick more efficiently if you're at a slight angle. So there's basic alternate picking technique. You don't want to be holding the pick out like this. You want a very low profile thing going on. So what we're going to do before we actually look at the exercise is we're going to go to the metronome, and we're just going to pick on the A string. No, we're not going to fret anything. Just going to practice this idea of low profile picking to the metronome. So I'm doing eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's a tempo of 165. go to the D string. Keeping that limited range of motion. You don't want that to make you tense up. You just want to be thinking about it so you don't end up doing this. All right, now we have to say something about muting too. When you're switching strings, if you don't mute using this part of your hand right here on the back of the bridge here, you're going to get this. Notice how much more range of motion I have. So there's a certain like hug that you have to have with this part of your hand and your wrist, so that you're not out here. That's not right. You got to be in like this. You should be able to palm mute pretty easily. But this one's open. And then when I move down to the D string, this part of my hand is guarding up here. What's down here? What's muting down here? Well, most of the time that's going to be your fingers. So if I'm picking this note, these fingers or these notes are being muted by this finger, by the angle of this finger, and the notes below it are being muted by this palm. So muting is huge when it comes to articulating an alternate picking. That's how I don't hear anything else. All right. So before we get into the actual exercise, are there any questions about what I've gone over so far? What kind of pick you might be using? What are you having problems or posture problem issues or anything like that?
We do have a couple quick questions here.
Great.
And the first one is from Barb Ryder. How do you keep the pick rotating in your fingers? Maybe that's from rotating. I'm not sure.
The key is to have the right amount of tension on the right amount of pressure on the pick. You don't want to be squeezing it really, really hard. But you want it to see, if I do it real slow, notice how I'm holding it loosely enough so that it's there. But it's not, if you hold it too loosely, it is going to rotate or fall out. That's just a practice and attention sort of thing. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself time to come up with the right amount of pressure on your pick. But I will say that certain picks sort of flop around and rotate or all those things. They happen more so than others. And that's another reason I like these, because the writing on them serves as a friction point so that they stay put while I'm playing. And that's a big deal to me. So again, like this pick is a nice pick, but it's totally smooth. And these I tend to lose track of a little bit more than the ones that have the writing on them.
Okay, and we have another one here from Andy. And the question is, does Chris hold the pick differently when he's playing lead compared to when he's strumming?
Yes. Well, no, it's the same, but it's different. I'll show you. So if I'm going to pick, let's say this scale, and zero in on my pick hand here. If I'm going to pick, I'm going to be sort of tighter into the body because I'm dealing with one string at a time. But if I'm going to strum, notice I'm not gonna do a whole lot different. What I did do, though, is I relaxed this. So for picking, it's in. It's kind of doing this. And then for strumming, watch what happens. Pick, strum. Pick, strum. So I'm not actually changing. I'm not doing this or anything. I'm giving myself a little bit more range here. So that right there, that's the difference.
All right, and the next one is from Richard46. How thick is your pick?
I don't know how thick this one is. I would say both of these are less than a millimeter, but right around a millimeter thick. Is that right? Yeah, because normally a pick would be like a 0.5 millimeter. Or, yeah, I would say that that the Jazz 3 is probably right around 1 millimeter, and this Rob Flynn pick is probably a little bit less. But the bottom line is that they're as thin as I can get them without having any bend to them. For alternate picking, I don't like to have bend. For strumming, I do like to have. I like the pick to bend a little bit, but not for alternate picking.
Okay, and this one's from TK West 2000. My right picking shoulder gets very tight. How to stop that?
So that is a product of trying to use too much of your arm. You know, I went through that too, where you're doing these, you're doing those things and you tense up because you're trying to go too fast. What I've discovered is that when I try to go too fast without being relaxed already, my shoulder will tense up. So it's like you're trying to go too fast without having really prepared for it. And if you're prepared for the speed and you're practiced up for whatever speed and you're focused on being clean rather than being fast, like we're not going to go terribly fast today. We're not going to do, John Petrucci Dream Theater style tremolo picking or anything or alternate picking. We're going to keep the tempos pretty reasonable because we want to focus on the mechanics. We want to, and you can always speed it up once you have the mechanics, but the goal here is not to play fast. The goal here is to play clean. And whenever I play fast without putting clean first, I tense up.
Okay, I think that's all we have right at the moment.
Okay.
We'll get a few more up here in a little bit.
Okay. Let us look line by line at our exercise. We're looking at line 1, and each line is the same pattern. We're going to start on 7, and we're going to go 7, 9, 7, 9, 10. Once you get this, it's really easy, but it doesn't look so easy when you first start. 7, 9, 7, 9, 10, 9, 10. That's what you do on your A string. Then we move to the D string. 9 or 7, 9, 10, 9, 7, 9, 7, 10, 9. It makes a lot more sense when you just sort of start to play it and not think about it too much. Here's the form. And then just repeat that indefinitely till you get it down. Okay, Okay, now there's a couple reasons this exercise is so cool. And it's that same pattern on every set of notes. So when we go to line 2, we'll cover that in a minute. But if we take this slow, you have to use alternate picking. You can't like substitute a hammer on or a pull off anywhere, or you're going to throw off you're going to start picking on upstrokes when you want to be picking on downstrokes. It's going to totally throw off the feel. So you have to make sure that you're picking every single note. But watch. We've got a string, we've got an outside string switch. An outside string switch means that you're picking down and then up on the outsides of the strings. If you zero in on my pick hand real quick. This right here, so down, up, right? We're outside the strings that we're playing. An inside picking maneuver would be up, down. See, I'm picking inside the 2 strings. Inside, outside. Inside, outside. All right, we address both of those in this exercise. So here we go. This is an outside. Excuse me. Watch what happens if I get lazy and try to put some hammer-ons and pull-offs in there. All of a sudden I'm picking up where I should be picking down, and I mess up almost every time when I try to get back to doing real alternate picking, especially when I start to speed up a little bit. So let's go back to the tab here. Here's the first line. Now you can take this pattern and go anywhere. It's just a great little warm-up with any set of, strings, any set of frets. And basically what we're doing is we're walking up an E minor scale through the course of all these lines. So we start here. Now, we get to the 9th fret at the end of that first line, and then we do a position shift to go up to here. So you see we have 9, 9. First finger assumes 9, and then we do the second line. So we're on 10 there. And we could go back to the beginning of that line and just repeat it indefinitely until we're comfortable with it. And now we're on 10, so I'm going to replace my second finger with my first finger to the next one up. So we got 10, 12. So I'll do the first 3 lines. No repeats. Okay, now Instead of continuing up on these strings, we switch strings and we go down to so we do this. We go from here, which is 12, to 7, which is the same note. And we do this. So we're fourth line. We start on the D string. So a little bit different shape. You can finger this however you want. Sometimes I finger it like this. Sometimes I'll do this. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but that's that shape. Okay, next. So we'd end there on the 9th fret, and we go to the 2nd page. So we're starting on 9, top line of the 2nd page. So we're getting a lot of different shapes, a lot of different patterns that we get to work out different fingers with. Notice how I'm accenting it too. You can accent it however you want, but having some sort of accent helps it feel a little bit more musical. Okay, so there's the first line. We end on 10. Replace with our first finger. Oops. Next, so 12, 14, we're on the 3rd line of the 2nd page. Next, and this is the final line, 4th line down. It brings us to the same form we had at the very beginning. And we start and we end on E. Here's the first one. So there's all of it. I'm going to play it extremely slow without a click, all the forms all the way through, so you can get an idea of how the thing builds together. Here we go. Now, like I said, we're only working out these 3 strings pretty much as it's tabbed, but you can take this anywhere and practice it on the higher strings if you like. I'll do it again, real slow. No repeats. Okay? So, there's a lot of different ways to practice this. Before we get into practicing different ways, questions, comments?
We got a couple more questions here.
Perfect.
This is another one from Andy. He was following up on the holding the pick, what way you hold the pick when you're playing lead versus rhythm. And he's wondering, is the tension the same when you're holding the pick?
You know, it really depends. It's a different feel, but I don't think that you're more tense when you're alternate picking than when you're strumming. I probably grip the pick a little bit harder when alternate picking, but not a lot. And it's not really something I think about either. If you start with what we talked about at the very beginning, where you're trying to use less range of motion and you're trying to do things, efficiently and quickly, the pick tension itself will sort of fall into place. But there isn't a right tension. It's what's going to allow you to be accurate and clean. As we start getting faster, that stuff, I'm not holding it very, very tightly.
Okay, next one is from Lorenzo. And he's wondering, for a faster piece, is it better to have a thinner pick?
No. I can't. I play slower with thinner picks because they start to flop. And it actually keeps you from having the right amount of tension. You can tense up and then they kind of flop around. I like thicker picks for faster tempos.
And from Teo4, do you change the picking posture when you string skip?
Oh, totally. We're not really going to deal with much string skipping today, but if we're doing something like that, there you just by sort of nature you have to bounce around a little bit more. So I guess it's not really changing the posture. I do the same sort of picking, but I'm wider out. I'm a little bit wider out than. You can see there's more motion that's happening.
Okay, that's all the questions right now.
Okay, cool. Well, here's the first way to practice it. Grab your metronome, and we're going to go down to like 80 beats per minute. And we're at a 16th note pace. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So that's, if we're just getting in that rhythm, pretty fast already. Let's bring it down to 70. And we just want to take it one line at a time. We don't necessarily want to get through the whole thing. That's why there's repeat signs there. You can just sort of pick it till you're comfortable. So the very first line, you could take it with 16th notes. Let's take it with 1 and we'll make it an 8th note thing. Nothing will help your alternate picking more than metronomes. So I'm not staying on them any particular amount of time. I'm lost. There we go. So the idea is that you're getting familiar at a slow tempo, not necessarily playing 16th notes, but that you're getting familiar with all the different patterns. Then, take it up to 16th notes, maybe at even the same tempo, and introduce the drone track. Once you've got all the different patterns down and you can play them consistently with a slow tempo at 8th notes. So I've got an E drone. Make it a little musical. Add some tone. And start your click. And start your click. There we go. All right. So you're picking at a comfortable tempo, and you're being musical and rhythmic with it. You're intentionally accenting. You are sort of getting in the mood with the drone track, and then being somewhat mechanical with it, making sure, there's a lot of times where I missed a note or I played the wrong thing the first repetition through, but I cleaned it up and then kept going. You don't ever want to stop. You want to try to correct. That's the great thing about playing with a metronome, is it keeps you going. It's a very important thing to do. Just keep going. And the drone, it helps so much to be sort of focused in on the tonal center. And what I've done here is I've included an E drone and a G drone I'm going to go to the G drone. We'll pick up the pace a little bit. Maybe we'll go to 85 beats per minute or something here. And we're going to go to the G drone, and it's a cool difference here. We're going to start in the same place. But listen to how it sounds different over the tonal center. So you get this sort of two different environments. One is a happy and one is a sad. We'll take the tempo up a little bit more, just to go up to 100 and see what happens. Got off there? Now, there really is no right tempo or wrong tempo, except that when you start losing composure, when you start tensing up, when you start losing the ability to accent and play cleanly, it's too fast. When you start being able to play consistently with the rhythm, it's too fast. I went from 70 all the way up to 100. I could push that and go faster, but eventually I'm going to find that ceiling where I start falling apart regularly, where I'm not able to keep the accenting, the picking feels sloppy, my range of motion starts getting bigger instead of tighter. I know that I need to create this, that I need to back it up a little bit and work at tempos that are comfortable. You will not improve speed and cleanliness-wise by pushing yourself to higher speeds without first being clean. Never, never, never will that work. So make sure that that all these things we're talking about are happening at whatever tempo you're playing. Questions?
Yeah, we have one question here.
Okay.
And I want to encourage everyone else, if you do have a question, go ahead and type it in your respective chat there if you're on YouTube or on live stream or on Jam Play, and we'll get the question in the queue and pass it on to Chris. This one is from Friendly White Guy. And the question is, do you recommend spending the same amount of time practicing technique for the fretting hand and the picking hand, or focus more time on one hand?
I think it's more about what you're wanting to do on the guitar. Like, the beauty of an exercise like this is it really is working out both hands, right? I mean, I don't know that I'd think about it in terms of like, okay, I got to work on this hand and then I got to work on this hand. I think it's, learn to play things, and whatever you're wanting to, like, if you're wanting to improve your picking, work on picking exercises. That's going to improve both hands, really, because it's good picking isn't just about the right hand or left hand. Good picking is about hand synchronization and being able to use them. Like I could sit here and I could do this, but there's no way I could actually play a scale that fast, and so great, I can pick really fast. I can pick one note really fast. But could I play a scale that fast and alternate pick it? No. So I need to work with both hands to make sure that what I'm playing it's worked in practically from a technique perspective. So I guess to answer your question, think about more, I'd like to improve my picking. Well then, learn exercises like this that kind of work out both hands. And then if you are wanting to learn a different song or some line that requires you to do sweep picking, for example, again, that involves both hands. If you're doing something like this, I mean, you can't sweep pick with one hand, right? Like it's. So think about it in terms of like the overall technique. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and then I wanted to pass along a comment from Nick over on YouTube. It was very helpful, the muting technique you showed with your left hand, muting the high strings above the note you were fretting.
Good.
That was very helpful for him.
Very cool. All right. Any other questions or comments?
We are caught up at the moment.
All right, get them in. There's one more way to practice that I've included here, and that's a speed up track. This is, once you're comfortable playing at a bunch of different speeds, try your hand at this. This is the drone, the E drone, but then it has a speeding up drum loop behind it with various fills and just to kind of make it fun. But it's going to go, I'm not exactly sure what the range of tempo was, but it starts pretty slow. And then it just speeds up for you. And so you can sort of find your ceiling. There's my ceiling right there. So I'm starting to lose it. Yep, right there is too fast for me now. So with this particular exercise, and I wish I could probably tap that out and find out, it's probably somewhere around 16th note equals 130, maybe. I don't know. But it's kind of a cool way because you know right now I made it 2 minutes 34 seconds in. Okay, let me back it up a little bit to 1 minute and go back up to that and see if all the things that I'm keeping in mind. See if I can push past that and feel clean. And I'd be real honest with yourself. Identify where you start to lose it. Back it up. Keep going forward. But it's a great exercise because it gradually speeds up like five beats per minute per increment. So there's alternate picking, a fantastic exercise for you guys to dive in and get a little better at alternate picking. Again, any tempo is fine. So it really shouldn't matter, how accomplished you are. Take it slow, take it medium, take it fast, and you'll get a little better at alternate picking.
All right, we got a couple questions here.
Great.
This one's from Nickel Fret. And the question is, when does speed become non-musical? When do we draw the line?
It becomes non-musical when you can no longer, as I was saying before, when you can no longer accent or play with accent, with thought, with feeling. If you can play cleanly and you can execute well, speed can be really, really fun, really, really cool. But if it's sloppy, then that's where you draw the line. You draw the line where it's sloppy.
Okay, and this one's from Barb Ryder. Could you explain sweep picking?
Yeah, briefly. It's sort of outside the scope of what we're doing in this lesson, but sweep picking is a form of consecutive picking. So rather than alternate picking, which is what we're doing, down, up, down, up, sweep picking is going to be picking single notes, but going one direction, up or down, over a variety of strings. So if I've got this arpeggio, for example, I could play that with alternate picking, right? Or I could play it going one direction on the way up and one direction on the way down. See what I did? It can create some interesting, It's a bit more efficient when you're doing one note per string sorts of things. That's sweep picking.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Dive in. Do this badge, practice this up, and I want to see people doing this. I want to see how people are using this exercise. In the backing tracks library of Jam Play, there's a speed 'em up, slow 'em down, or something, alternate picking, and it has this exercise tabbed out a little bit, or tabbed out, but it's just a different track that you could look at as well. You can find that in the backing tracks library if you search under my name. But the speed up in E track and the two drones are included in the supplemental content of this particular. Everything that we demonstrated today is included in the practice section. Don't forget to watch the guided practice. It's going to summarize what we talked about and review how to practice using the various tools that we talked about today. So if there are no other questions, have fun alternate picking. We'll see you next week for the next skill.